This is Studio Shanks Sundays live at 5. I'm Patricia Shanks, and you should keep watching. I am once again welcoming a gentleman who has done a previous segment for me, and he has remarkable performance skills. I'll give you his name again in a second, but he is also, and not also, because there's certainly nothing also about it, the chair of the Department of Music and professor of vocal music at Irvine Valley College in Irvine, California, and that's quite a lot, quite a job. And but besides that, before I give you his name, this gentleman sings with the Los Angeles Master Chorale Conspirare, the Bach Collegium. I've different pronunciations. I have no idea. Golden Bridge, Tesserae, Prism, and other groups. He's sung with many others. He has recorded as a soloist under the baton of Michael Tilson Thomas with the New World Symphony. He has sung with many symphonies. I would ask you to find the previous segment featuring this gentleman to learn all about his credits and credentials, because they are many and exciting and wonderful. And his name is Dr. Matthew Tresler. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Patricia. Thanks for having me back.
Oh yeah, thank you for coming back, and because we didn't talk about your teaching so much. We only touched on it in the last segment. And and it's really important. I mean, if anything is important, it's educating people so they can become people who do things like you do and like you've done. So I remove my cheaters here. There we are. Tell me a little bit about what you do and how long you've done it and how you got into it. Anything you want to tell me about your work at Irvine Valley College.
Sure. Thank you very much for asking. This is my 14th year at Irvine Valley College. It doesn't seem possible, but it is. It's been a very busy and good and fast 14 years. I'm the director of the vocal area, so I conduct the choir and teach private voice, class voice, oversee that area. And I've been a department chair for the last few years. I don't remember how many actually at this point. And I also teach classes in music appreciation, which is sort of Western classical history. I teach the honors courses for that. And I've taught a few other things along the way, but it is my primary focus and you know, my full-time day job, and there a lot of the time. Even right now, we only have a few things back on campus, but I'm there several days a week in my office doing work on campus. It's great to be back. In fact, this is an exciting thing happening at IVC, but they just put up some construction trailers behind our Performing Arts Center because we're building a new arts village. We're going to have a music facility, which should open in the spring of 2024. We're very excited
Wow.
about that. It's going to open a lot of
Wow.
doors for us.
Wow, that's terrific.
It
That's
is.
terrific. Things are moving up and things are changing at Irvine Valley College. Fantastic. Now, how many ensembles? Is there one ensemble, one vocal ensemble?
There's one vocal ensemble, and traditionally it's been between 60 to 70 singers, sort of, you know, before the COVID change when everything went online just after spring break. But we did for a while have a women's choir. We have had that a couple of times in the history of the college, and we have big plans as we continue to build back after this time away and with our new facility. And as the city of Irvine continues to grow, as you know, our service area, as we call it, had seen a huge explosion of population just in the time that I've lived here. I live in Irvine myself these 14 years. And so we're just looking forward to a time when this college continues to grow and serve more of the community, and that we have more than one ensemble in each of the different areas. But that's the one choral ensemble. We also have a very fine, very active wind symphony, a large sort of concert band. We have a symphony orchestra. We have a jazz ensemble, a guitar ensemble. We have a class that works as sort of a piano ensemble class where they perform works together and in small groups. So do have a lot going on in a lot of areas in music.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrific. Now, with the vocal ensemble, because you are, your background is so vocal, even though you are in charge of so many things there. And I think you're on multiple committees and things too. People don't realize that being a teacher, and being in charge of a department means, it's your baby, it's your life, it's one of those 24/7 type of teaching things. And of course, you have a performing career that's also something like that. So I don't know how you do it all, but what so how does the ensemble perform? What kind of performances are there?
Okay. The choir performs typically 4 times a year, twice a semester, and I sort of tend to program about an hour of music in a typical year. Now I say sort of typical and sort of couch these things because we're just coming back with some restrictions in the way we rehearse, which changes a little bit of the repertoire, but usually about an hour. And we'll do at least once a year, we'll do a major work with orchestra. We've done Mozart Mass, we've done a Stravinsky Mass, we've done a couple of more contemporary pieces by people like Bradley Ellingbo, Kim Andre Arneson. We also perform Renaissance music. Actually, our last concert before we all left and went completely online, we performed music by Chiconia, which is 500 years old, that music particularly, as well as brand new music. We've had a few pieces commissioned by IVC where a composer's written a new work for us, and they'll usually come out, for those performances, which is really fun. So we try to do a little bit of everything, ideally for me, so that in a student's 2 years, if we're talking about sort of that traditional student moving through the sequence, that they have sung music from all major periods and as well as music from around the world. It's an important thing to have that varied experience.
I was just about to say, when you're talking about Stravinsky, you're talking about these incredible pieces, and I was thinking, this is a 2-year college. This is an introductory college doing these kinds of pieces. That speaks very well for what you're doing, as a teacher and administrator, and for what those students are capable of. This is an impressive program.
Well, thank you. I do want to say that one of the other unique things about the community colleges, and particularly ours in our community, is we not only serve that sort of traditional 2-year student that's preparing to transfer either as a music major or a major in biochemical engineering, or languages or government, and we have all those students. But we also have a service to our community. We have community members that are working professionals, some of them actually faculty or administration in the college that come one night a week and perform with one of our ensembles. So that group in our community also gives us a little bit more sort of long-term stability to perform these larger works. And so it's really a combination of those two communities coming together and exploring this music that really helps us to be successful and to be able to perform that much music and that sort of a varied repertoire.
Yeah, and I like that, I come from the old school days where we called the 2-year colleges junior colleges. And I really like that you are calling it, and that it's now known as more as a community college, and that the community is involved in participating. So that's fantastic. So what now has COVID affected the numbers of people who are participating, or
It's
any quality or anything?
It certainly has affected the numbers, and that's true across the state. One of the wonderful things about the California Community College system is it's open enrollment. Anyone can join a class. Because of that, I think we have seen more of a drop as opposed to the universities, the Cal State and the UC, because they were already impacted. They have more people apply than they can take. So I don't think they've seen sort of the number drop that we have. But we certainly have across the state seen a large drop in people who are just willing to come back and take their classes right now, either because maybe they're not comfortable being back on campus, or maybe they'd rather wait until everything is back on campus. There's a little bit of online fatigue, I think. Although from polling, it seems that a lot of our student population at IVC still prefers to take courses online. So we're just sort of in this little, netherworld right now, figuring all that out. But it's also affected how we teach our courses.
Yes, yeah, the online, teachers went crazy for a long time trying to figure out how to handle this, and especially with online things and with music and with latency and and the equipment and everything. What do we do about that? So are there still classes that are going on, musical vocal classes or music classes that are going on online as well as in person?
There are music classes online. All the vocal classes, which is choir and class voice, and then the private lessons for the music majors, those are all happening on campus. But we have a lot of music courses that are still online, especially courses in music history, music theory. All of our music major theory classes are online. Piano classes are still online. So there are still some that are there, but the things that are more practical, that just it was very difficult to teach something like voice online because even though I would have a keyboard set up here, if I played, people couldn't sing with me, as you say, because of the latency. So we had to problem solve around that and use some third-party apps where the singers would sing into that, and I could go watch it and add comments that were in real time to me watching it. And everybody had to mute and we would sing along, and but I of course couldn't hear what they were doing. So it's just much more practical to be back on campus with those, especially active music making classes.
Right. Although the one benefit I know to teaching was online was that you could record that and send it back because though we would often ask students to either, with a video or audio record their lessons, students didn't always do.
Yes. Yeah.
So here, whether or not they listen to it, they at least have an opportunity to watch and hear and see what they're doing, which is so beneficial. Now, when it comes to students and participating in the vocal groups, and I also want to ask about participating as a private voice lessons too. What is the process? This may, kind of intimidate some people. What do they do if they want to sing in the choir? And, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can do that, if I'm good enough, or let's start with that. What about
Sure.
singing in the choir?
Well, as I said, we do about an hour concert twice a semester, and it's a lot of music, very often in many languages. And so, because of that, every member of the choir needs to be able to read music. So that's the sort of limitation. So I do have sort of what we would call a skills assessment. Most people refer to it as an audition, but truly it's a skills assessment where I have the singer sing up and down a scale to get a general idea of their intonation and range and pitch accuracy. And then we'll do what we call tonal memory, where I play 5 notes and you sing it back on la 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 or whatever you like. And it just tells me a lot about their ear. And then I'll have them sight read a piece of music. And singing is a little different than playing most instruments because you can't see this instrument like you can a piano or a violin. And because we all sing at some point in our youth, right? Most people do sing along with something. So it's easy to sort of come to singing, but not always easy to be accurate with it just because of, coordination. So that's the limitation for choir. And if people aren't able to read at a certain level, we have courses for that. I recommend to them take Music 1 at our college. That's a class in how to read music, music literacy,
I
or just take
wanted
a
to ask.
beginning piano course, or come take a voice class if they have an issue with matching pitch, some of those things. We have class voice where you can learn those skills and come back and audition in the future.
I wanted to ask you that, yeah, because say somebody has it, just dearly in their heart, and for some reason, we don't have that kind of music education in the elementary schools like we used to have, where, back in my day, we won't talk about it because I have the thing that makes me look beautiful and makes me look much younger on the video. But back in my day in elementary school, we had music books that we cracked open, and you were learning to read whether you knew it or not. People who went to churches and sang hymns were learning to read music whether they knew it or not because they were starting to adjust to the intervals, and recognize this note goes up there and so does my voice and things like that. But because we don't have that kind of music education, and no one has told a lot of these people who just sing to whatever on YouTube, that they have to read music, but they dearly have it in their hearts to do this. It's probably a rude awakening when they come in and have to audition and like, this is Greek to me."
But I do want to say that's again the wonderful thing about the California Community College system is this lifelong training is here. If I get a new camera and decide I want to go into photography, I can go take courses in that and I can learn those skills. And that's part of the mission, set up within the state. And a wonderful thing, not being a California native, it's a wonderful thing about the system. That training is there. The opportunity is always there.
I'm all about community colleges. I have to say, in all the schools that I attended, my favorite classes were not at one of these, but at one of the other community colleges. Favorite teachers, favorite classes, best grades. It was a wonderful experience. So yeah, nobody should ever, because I think sometimes people diss the two-year colleges. Nobody, don't ever, because they're the best. They're the best.
Well, I do have to say, being somebody who works outside of the state, this system also has a really good reputation across the country.
Yes, yes. Now, private voice. Okay, so you say people, can they have issues with their vocal skills, and yet they want to do the ensembles or become soloists. So what do they do if they want to come to Irvine Valley College and get into a voice class, or a
So,
voice class, or a solo, lesson?
sure. Voice class is something that anybody can register for, and when we're sort of up at full steam, we have three levels of voice for somebody who's never sung at all, or somebody who has singing experience who still wants to take that first level voice, because that's where you really break down. Here are the components of the vocal instrument, and here's how they work together, through a voice 2 and a voice 3. So there are different levels. Anyone can sign up for those. For the private lessons, those are part of our music major program, and that entails an audition. You also need to be able to read music for that. And being a music major means you're taking actually a cohort of classes. You're taking a course in music harmony, music theory, how not just how to read music, but how to write it, to understand the language and the direction, and to some degree a little bit of the development of music. Then they also are part of an ensemble where you're actually making music on a weekly basis with other people in real time. And then they also have, in addition to these private 45-minute lessons once a week with a private teacher, they also have once a week a sort of master class, an applied workshop where all of the music majors with all of the different instruments perform on a rotation. So we may have a snare drum and a harp and a singer and a pianist this week, and then we talk about the pieces that they perform. And so the students have an opportunity to learn about not just musical terms, which is what we really try to focus on and discuss in our performances, but they get a chance to learn that there are pedals on a harp, and changing those pedals change the pitch of the strings. They get to learn about these instruments and share also, not just to learn, but to share, their own experience and what it is they're doing. So there's 4 courses in the music major, and there's a formal audition for that to be part of it. It's a 2-year sequence, 4 semesters, so that we're preparing students to transfer, hopefully, to complete their 4-year degree. But we also have a lot of students that finish the AA in music and go on and do something within music.
I like that masterclass thing. Back in the day when I was a voice person, going and this was at a private university. So this follows exactly what goes on at a private university. You have your lesson, you have your recital attendance, we used to call it. You have whatever, all the things that you mentioned. But we didn't have such a masterclass where you are introduced to all those other instruments, and I think that's very valuable. Um, very exciting. I'm just really excited about everything that I'm hearing here, because I'm not totally in the loop, but I'm going to start paying more attention to Irvine Valley College, and I can't wait for that other area to open up. Woohoo! Yeah. um, Now, okay, questions about. Oh, I hope that reads. Will that show up in the
It
video?
will.
The fireworks? That's
It
great. I
will.
love it. I'll have to learn how to do those things. So, so anyway, now singing, when people are soloists and they have to sing in an ensemble, what do you do when people have very specific ways of singing? Maybe they're more of a belter, maybe they have quite a vibrato, um, different things that don't necessarily blend. How do you approach dealing with this? You know?
Thankfully, I haven't had to deal too much with that in my time at IVC, but my ready answer for that one is it's important to be flexible. I talk about how when we're discussing things like just tone color or timbre or vibrato, any of these things, I always say, remember when you were first in school and you had a box with 8 colors of crayons, then when you got that 16 color box or the 32 color box, how much more exciting life is, because you have all these colors that you can color your tree. It's not just green. And the same is true as a singer. It's very valuable for us to have a lot of flexibility and a lot of colors on our palette. You should be able to sing with vibrato, without vibrato, with a little wider, with a little smaller, faster maybe, or should be able to sing with a little bit of a breathy quality, more of a focused quality, and it really just depends on perhaps the style or the song itself. Within one style, you can have to have both of those qualities. And I think if you look to any sort of successful or acclaimed singer in any style, they have that sort of palette and flexibility. If we have a singer that just has one sort of sound, it's good for that one-hit wonder sort of a singer, but not necessarily somebody with longevity. It's important for us to be a well-rounded singer as much as possible. And the way to do that is to know how your instrument works.
Right. And I know there are many people who have that flexibility, and I'm trying to think. One who comes to mind for some reason just popped in my brain is Audra McDonald.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
Beautiful voice, yeah, and she is able to sing gospel spiritual type stuff, musical theater, very much classical operatic sound. She has a very flexible instrument and just really solid technique.
Yes.
And
Yeah, a classically trained singer, but of course made her name on Broadway. I was very fortunate to see her in a recital in the Bay Area maybe 5 or 6 years ago and just was blown away in a live performance by her. Such a communicative performer. It's a great example.
yes, a good acting singer. And this is something for your solo singers, it's not, well, for all of the singers, it's not just about the voice. You have to be able to communicate. I remember a quick thing. I do remember now, but I won't say who the singer was. One of the when the Met started putting the movies in, making movies in the theater.
Mhm.
Okay, and it was, I think it was, yeah, it was Magic Flute. Well, that probably kind of tells you who it is. Well, there was one singer who had gorgeous voice, and but I didn't get that communication with the audience because they're not used to being on video. And now everything is, you have to be a movie star too.
It's true for those, yeah. Yeah, I do always like to say to singers that in a most perfect world, we're not thinking about the next note. We're not thinking about sort of how we're getting through that register. We're thinking about the meaning of the words. That's the one thing that singers have that no other musician gets to have is the text. And in the most perfect world, in the most perfect situation, we're really just telling a story. We're communicating a text.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just thinking of so many things here that I want to ask you. Um, when you started as a singer, I think you played piano and clarinet and tuba.
Yeah.
Let's just pick two really odd,
Well,
one down there and one up here.
what they
Uh,
needed.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, what do you want? Okay, I'll play that. Have chops will travel.
Yeah.
Uh, but when you first started learning to sing, really studying voice, were there any, quatzes, any like revelations, anything that was like, oh my goodness, because I find this all the time with singers that they just really don't know what they're getting into. And yeah, or maybe some of your students, maybe without, going into who, just over time, some of the things that your students uh, are like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that, or this is enlightening.
Sure. Speaking for myself, I didn't study voice until I got to college. Like many of the students that taught in my time at IBC, I didn't have a single private lesson in voice. I took piano lessons, but I didn't have any voice until I got to college. So my understanding of voice was what I had learned in choir in school, and I learned some very good solid things there, but it was in the context of a larger group, of both soprano, alto, and tenor and bass in the room. And so I went to college as a baritone, and by the end of my first year, I was a tenor.
I
So
think
I
so.
went through a lot of discovery in that first year about my own instrument and how to use it and what's actually happening because a lot of it is just, I suppose I was naturally connected with music. And so I was able to sort of just make things happen my own way, but that might not always be the best and most efficient path in singing. So I definitely learned a lot in that transition of actually having some study.
Right, right. Yeah, because they're intricacies of breathing, intricacies of tone production and making vowel sounds and consonants and like who knew? You don't just open your mouth and sing the pretty song and
Right?
voila. So,
Right. Yeah. You're very lucky if you do, and some can, but for most of
yeah.
us, it takes some time.
Yes, but everybody can always use improvement and that's the thing we're always learning, and people who study, I've heard other people say this and you recognize this. Once you get into it and you realize what a deep pool you're in,
Yes.
um, then it's exciting because you have so much to learn, but it's also a little daunting, like there's so much to learn. And so people keep studying and learning, but that's life. That's what it's the music. That's what makes it beautiful. If you're not always learning and growing, what are you doing?
I
You
totally
know?
agree. And that's really one of the things that makes me feel so fortunate to be a music educator is I am constantly sharing this musical information, which means I'm constantly reviewing and constantly discovering myself. And as I always tell the students, there is no right and wrong in music, and there is no end in music. we will never know it all, and we will never completely have a deep understanding from all angles of any one thing in music. That's what's so exciting about it. I'm still buying new CDs of things and listening, still discovering new composers, and after 10 years of voice study in university, still taking lessons from time to time. There's just so much to learn.
See, that's it. And you are, if everybody needs to watch part one to learn about Matt's career, singing career. But a person like you, with your background, having sung solo under the baton of Michael Tilson Thomas, and you're still studying, you're still working because you have to keep it in shape. Um, I was thinking earlier on one of the old TV shows, and it was funny. It was an interview with Beverly Sills and Ethel Merman.
Huh.
Talk about tuba and clarinet, right?
All right.
And so Beverly Sills said, "Well, don't you practice?" And Ethel Merman, who was just a wonderful, talented, could do no wrong, she said, "Oh heavens, no! I'd go stale. I'd be afraid I'd go stale or something." But of course, she was always singing, and that's one thing. When you're always singing, you're always practicing. So, that was probably a little bit of showbiz,
Yeah.
whatever that she tossed off there. But yeah, you always work, you always practice, you always learn, and that's what makes it wonderful and exciting and new discoveries. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to know about studying at. Oh gosh, yes, there is something really important. Just came to me. Masks.
Yes.
Because of COVID, we have all these issues now. We can't be too close together, and so we're trying to protect ourselves. So what do you know about because of masks? What can you
Well, I
tell
can
me?
tell you that at the college we're following, there was an international aerosol study done through the University of Colorado, and they came through with a bunch of guidelines. And among those is the kind of filters, the amount of time at IVC. We rehearse for 45 minutes and leave the room for 15 to change the air. But everybody is also masked at all times. And so as a singer, as a professional, same thing. I've been working again, but always in a mask. And so a singing mask is not unlike any other. You can wear a K95. The KN95s actually, because they're sort of the shield model, they have a little space and that works. But there are also these singing masks that are made that have a bit of a duck bill, as some
Isn't
people
that
refer to it.
cute?
So you can see it's got a wire frame.
It kind of
So,
reminds me of Jimmy Durante.
cha-cha-cha.
Yeah, but it gives you room to breathe and,
It
and room to
does, and
sing.
and so we're using them, in the college as singers' masks. But the wind players also have a mask that has a small opening with a magnetic closure, so they can open and put their mouthpiece through. And there's a flute one that comes in from the side. And they sort of had some funny jokes at the beginning of the semester because when you're in a rehearsal as a band director, you're used to saying everybody back to bar 41, you raise your hands and you play, but everybody's still trying to get their mask open to get their. There's a learning curve in all of this for all of us. But that's one of the big adjustments is and also spacing people out and just being careful because of course we want to make music, but the most important thing about it is the people. So just being safe and taking our time and in our district we are requiring vaccines as of next semester, and all of the professional organizations I've been part of are not only requiring vaccination but are testing. In fact, I have a test on Monday for something else I'm doing this week as a singer. So it's just
Right.
precautions are important. Of course, people are the most important thing.
Right, right. And I wondered about those masks for the players that have the opening. I thought, well, how does air not escape? But if it's magnetic, that makes sense. It just closes around.
Yeah,
And
but
I've
they also
also
put a bell cover.
I've seen those. Yeah, they remind me of the things either a shower cap or
Yes,
or
yes,
the things that you put over, your food bowls.
yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, it's just a
So,
fabric cover because I think there is a little bit of air leakage that comes around keys or valves, but they say something like 80% of the air, because you're pushing air through an instrument, that the aerosolization goes straight through and is stopped at that end. So
right, right. Um, well, thank you for sharing that, for sharing
sure,
your, I just had a little something in my throat here, for sharing your duckbill
sure.
with us. And how is the resonance on those? You can still hear?
Yes, you really can actually. They have a double layer inside and some have removable filters, but it's pretty good. There's actually a third one of these that I have that's called the resonance mask. And it's a little bit taller and has a rubber gasket around it and a head strap that goes above and below. So there are many different models of these, which
Are
is
these
nice.
Are these found through educational resource supplies or?
The singer's masks we used at the college we're providing for people who are in vocal classes. We purchased through one of those suppliers through J.W. Pepper. But this one here was made, I bought this early on in the pandemic by Broadway Relief. When Broadway went dark, the costume shop started making masks and selling them as a relief for a fund. The residence one was provided to me by the Master Chorale. They have a uniform mask. So there are many different types and many different places to find them. I happen to know that some of the local music stores in Orange County are carrying these singers'
Oh,
masks.
that's good to know. Yeah, because people need to, how do we find these things? You can find a lot of masks, but they're not necessarily.
And I will say that my colleague in the communications department who teaches speech is using these as well, because that, when you're speaking a lot in a mask, it's a helpful thing.
That's right. That's right. Well, good. That's really important information. I'm glad that that dawned on me again and that you had that there to share. So, well, there's probably a lot more to talk about, but you've been so kind with your time.
Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, and have fun at Irvine Valley College,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, and we'll look forward to that opening of that new
Yes.
facility.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, I look forward to we'll see you conduct, we'll see your groups perform, and thanks again, Matt.
Thank you, Patricia. You have a great weekend.
All right, you too.
Thanks.
And everybody, stay tuned, to this channel because there will be many more episodes of Studio Shanks Sundays live at 5, and that's at youtube.com/Patricia Shanks Voice. Thanks very much for watching. Subscribe.